Welcome to another edition of Inside Outlook. I'm Tony Trungone, Superintendent of Pemberton Township Schools. This special edition is intended for our staff members who work in the Pemberton Township Schools, and the topic is our school budget for the 18-19 school year. But first, a little background on how our school district is funded. 75% of our budget is funded through state funds. And then the second biggest contributor is our local tax levy, which is 14%. We have 1% of federal aid, and we have 4% that's other, such as tuition from students outside Pemberton. And then we also have capital, which is our capital projects that we have. That is not really revenue per se. It really comes from a bank account that we have that funds projects that we have to do to our facilities. Another facet of our school funding is the school funding formula that the state follows to fund school districts. And so what you see here is that we are funded up to over $82 million in state aid. And if you follow the formula, we should only be receiving a little over $52 million in aid. And so that gap is called adjustment aid, and it's over $30 million in adjustment aid. And that's been a bone of contention with districts that are underfunded. Next is our local fair share, what people in Pemberton pay to support the local school district. And so we pay over $14 million, or the residents pay $14 million to contribute to the local school district. And the Department of Education, their formula tells us that we should be paying, or the residents should be paying, over $21 million in their local fair share. So there's a gap of over $7.5 million. So in summary, our district has been prescribed by the Department of Ed as overfunded by $30 million and does not contribute to our local fair share by $7.5 million. And there have been reports in the newspapers regarding school funding in Pemberton Township schools and impending cuts to school aid to our school. Some say our state aid could be reduced by as much as $25 million, which would be catastrophic. Some say our school aid would remain the same. And then I think the third scenario would be it's going to lie somewhere in between. And so we have the politics in all this, and there's a picture of Steve Sweeney, and he's a power broker in Trenton now. He's calling the shots, not Governor Murphy, and he's telling people that districts that are overfunded, such as Pemberton that receive over $30 million in adjustment aid, he wants to take that aid from us and redistribute that to districts that do not have enough funding from the state, which is called underfunded. He wants to phase it in over 5 years. And he also wants districts that do not contribute their local fair share to close that gap. He hasn't prescribed a plan for that. We're advocating that it'll be a severe impact, high impact to the town similar to Pemberton, with our ability to pay for lack of ratables being in the Pinelands, and also we have county properties that we don't collect monies for, so it'll be a struggle. That being said, we have some difficult but necessary decisions to make, and I want to start with some recent events. And for lack of a better term, I call them rounds, because I feel we are battling here, and I'm battling for our district. So what happened in this current school year? We were provided our state aid figures last February, and then the state took $1.5 million from us in July. We absorbed that reduction without affecting any staff. We cut certain line items, operational expenses, so we could keep things whole. And then round two happened, and round two is our health insurance increased substantially by over 13%. And some numbers are up to $2.3 million. We also saved money on our prescription by about $800,000, but all told, with the reduction in state aid and with the increase in our health benefits, we had a $3 million gap this current year in regards to our budget. Then round three came, and that was this February, March, where we received our state aid figures. And lo and behold, in March, we received an increase of $658,000. And even with the increase, the budget included $2.8 million in reductions. And there were reductions mostly in operating expenses, but also 14.5 reductions through attrition, such as retirement. So somebody will retire, we didn't replace that person. We submitted our budget to the state. It was approved. Since that time, there's been a battle in Trenton between the state senator, who's the president of the state senate, Steve Sweeney, who I mentioned earlier, and our governor, Phil Murphy, in regards to state aid. And so even though the governor creates the budget, as far as what goes on inside the budget, the appropriations, that's up to the Senate and the Assembly. And so Steve Sweeney has explicitly said there will not be an approval of the school budget come July 1st if that adjustment aid is not reduced and given to other school districts. And he has support on both sides of the aisle. And so Governor Murphy is pressed into a corner right now, and that in turn leaves a district like Pemberton in regards to a loss of state aid. That leads us to round 4. Sometime between now and June 30th, the state will reduce our state aid. As mentioned earlier, that reduction in state aid will most likely not be $25 million, but will be reduced by some amount. Speaking with legislators, the Department of Education, and multiple people in the field of education, we have been told to expect a reduction in our state aid of $1.5 million from what was told to us back in March. So after analysis of the situation and a previous focus on cutting operational expenses, which were non-personnel cuts, we are forced to make additional reductions in personnel. Furthermore, on the analysis of the situation, we raised local taxes. We utilized more than $2.1 million in our reserves for the rainy day. We focused on more in cutting operational expenses rather than people, and we reduced staff through attrition rather than layoffs. But now, again, as I mentioned earlier, we're in a difficult position that we have to make necessary action, take necessary action, and would be forced to make additional reductions in personnel. So what's next? We are building a plan. We will notify affected staff by Thursday, May 10th. In addition to the 14.5 positions slated not to be replaced that was mentioned in the budget presentation, we anticipate another reduction of 10 positions. We have petitioned to the Commissioner of Education formally. We will continue to seek opportunities to dialogue with legislators. And also we will continue to reach out to our local community. But we're also looking for take other measures. So rest assured we're not going to sit here and do nothing. And so another step will be to discuss with our Board of Education the idea of taking legal action, being we are a former Abbott school district that provides extraordinary services to our children based on legal precedent. Thank you.